Okie dokie. This is too much effort while I'm sick, but we're gonna do it anyway. Welcome to Dietary Restrictions Kitchen. My name is Carson. I have a lot of dietary restrictions due to food allergies and health issues. And today we're going to make bread. We're going to start with the Sally's baking addiction recipe and then make a bunch of substitutions to meet my dietary needs. So I am allergic to most cow's milk, so I'm going to use powdered goat's milk instead. And I don't tolerate like refined table sugar, but I'm good with fruit sugar. So I'm using date sugar, and this will be substituted 1 for 1. And then I'm putting olive oil in everything these days because the only diet recommended for people with my health issues is the Mediterranean diet, and it's just like a lot of fish and fruits and vegetables and all of your fat from olive oil. The recipe calls for butter, but I cannot do butter, so we're doing olive oil instead. I usually make this bread mostly whole wheat, but I'm currently recovering from illness, and that much fiber is a bad idea, so I'm going to substitute like just a little bit of whole wheat in this loaf. I work with a scale instead of measuring cups because flour can be compressed in measuring cups, and also with a scale there's fewer things to clean. I like to make my own bread because I have issues with some of the extra things that go into commercial bread, and I get to control everything that goes into a loaf when I make it myself. So we have the bowl for my stand mixer, and let me zero my scale. So the recipe calls for about 420 grams of all-purpose bread flour. I am going to start with whole wheat, and as long as my total makes it to about 420, I'll be good. So that's about 100 grams of whole wheat. And then this is all-purpose flour. There we go, that's about 420 grams. With the rest of the dry ingredients, I need 1/4 cup of whole milk, but I'm using powdered goat milk. And this has a scoop in it. What does it say? The scoop is about 1 cup, which is less than my water's heated. So it's got a scoop in here. And I'm just gonna scoop. And then I'm gonna make sure that my liquids equal the total in the recipe of the water and the whole milk when I get to that point. And then for the sugar, it wants 25 grams. And I know that date sugar is not quite an exact replacement for granulated sugar, but I just do it anyway. And then the yeast I will measure out because the yeast I only need 7 grams of, and this scale is not very accurate at that low a weight. So I need 2 1/4 teaspoons. Come on. So this is a 1/2 teaspoon, 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/4. And then we need 56 grams of fat, and I'm using olive oil for this. Close enough. And now I have my water heated up. The liquids need to be at 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which my kettle has already heated up. And I need 1 1/4 cups to make up the volume of liquid for both the water and the whole milk. Last measuring cup. That's about 1 1/4 cups. Okay, that is everything but the salt. So I used to make a lot of sourdough, and I have a lot of opinions about when to add the salt. I don't want to add it in directly at the same time as the yeast because it dampens the impact of the yeast. So I'm going to mix this a little bit first and then add the salt later. The salt is another ingredient that I'm going to measure with a teaspoon instead of by weight because it is such a small amount. So let me get this started on my stand mixer. Okay, the dough started to come together. So I'm going to add the salt now. And I need 1.5 teaspoons. Oh, the salt's probably a little too chunky for this. So that's half. 1.5. And then this is just going to need for about 8 minutes. Okay, this has been 8 minutes. Oh, and the salt didn't really dissolve. Let me get the dough hook out. The salt didn't really dissolve. I don't know if that's going to be an issue, but we'll find out. Here's our dough. To see if it's ready, we were going to pull off a chunk. We're going to do the window pane test. So we take off a chunk, and if we can see light through, then it's ready. And I don't know if you can see that, but this dough is ready. So the salt didn't really dissolve. I don't know if that's going to be an issue. There will be a couple more occasions to do a couple folds and get it more incorporated, but I think it's going to be fine. So I'm going to leave this now. The recipe recommends an hour or 2, and my kitchen's a little cold, so I'm going to do 2. Cover it with plastic wrap so it doesn't dry out. Hey Google, set a timer for 2 hours.
Got it. 2 hours. And that's starting now.
Okay, so I'm gonna let this sit and I'm gonna go take a nap because I've been standing up for too long and I've been sick. That's why I'm covered in bruises. Just got out of the hospital for some stomach problems. Fun times. I'll be back in 2 hours. We are back. It has been 2 hours and my dough has about doubled. So you can see here. And now I'm going to shape it. This part comes a bit from my sourdough experience, but I just turn it out. Come on. Turn it out on the counter and that deflates it a little bit. And then I kind of like shape it into a ball. This just adds a little more tension and builds a little more gluten. And I'm just like pulling it with the bench scraper to form it into a ball a little bit more. It looks like the salt did mostly dissolve. So we have our bowl. And then this is going to sit for another half hour before I do the final shape. And we'll be back for that later. We are back. It's been about half an hour and my loaf has still grown a little bit and relaxed a little bit, and it's now time to shape it. I have a plain old loaf pan that I've greased with cooking spray so the bread doesn't stick. And then I'm just gonna pull the thing off and then flip it over and then roughly pat it into like a rectangle shape. And it's gonna spread out as I roll it up. And this is just to add more tension to it so it like looks like a bread loaf. Okay, that's good. Goes in here. And then we cover it and leave it for another hour. And that's it. We'll know it's done proofing when you can like poke your finger into it and it doesn't spring back anymore. So I will know when it's done. Hey Google, set a timer for an hour.
Okay, 1 hour. Starting now.
Cool. It is at this point that I will say I am not a medical professional. I am not a food professional. If you have stomach problems or food allergies, talk to a professional. Don't take advice from a stranger on the internet. And just like you should not take advice from a stranger on the internet, I will not be taking advice from a stranger on the internet. So please no medical advice in the comments. If you want to talk about food and like how to work around dietary restrictions, I'm happy to do that. So let me know in the comments your thoughts and feelings on all of that, and we'll be back. It's an hour later and my loaf is proofed. Let me double check that it is done. So we should be able to poke it and the dent will stay. There we go, we're good. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees. It should take about 35 minutes. And we're just gonna pop it in. I took the bottom rack off, and it's a little dirty. Don't judge me. In you go. Hey Google, set a timer for 35 minutes.
Got it. 35 minutes. And that's starting now.
It's been almost 35 minutes. It's time to check on the bread. Bread is done when it reaches about 190 in the center. There are all kinds of rules about like tapping on it and seeing if it's hollow, but thermometer, easy, numbers. This is just a meat thermometer. And we have about 200, so it's done. Now comes the hardest part of this whole process, waiting. If you cut into a fresh loaf of bread while it's still hot, all of the steam will escape and it will ruin the structure of the crumb. It is very tempting because fresh bread smells amazing, but don't do it. Let it cool completely. Oh, doesn't want to come out yet. I'm going to give it a couple minutes. And there it goes. And now we wait. I'll be back tomorrow morning when I use this to make my breakfast. I lied. It's 2 days later. I had a doctor's appointment at the crack of dawn yesterday. When you get released from the hospital, it spawns 12 bajillion follow-up appointments, so it's time to make my breakfast. Here's my loaf. It's just been wrapped up in a kitchen towel for a while. There we go. It's a lovely sandwich loaf. The milk makes it crusty. You can't really taste the olive oil. And the date sugar just tastes like sugar, but it's been a long time since I had real sugar, so I don't know. It tastes good. And there is my sandwich loaf with all of my substitutions to meet my dietary restrictions. And now it's time to make myself some breakfast. It's too early to film. Yeah, let me know if there's anything else you want to see. I have some ideas for some videos, and there's going to be like a whole ranty thing about why I'm doing this in the first place. But take care of yourself and take your medication. Bye. I'm just going to sit here because it's got like 2 minutes left. Ugh. It's a lot of effort to make bread, but then I know exactly what's in it. Like, stuff I buy at the store, you can read the label, but then it's hard to find something that has exactly what you want with all the stuff that you want in it, so it's just easier to make my own, even if it does take a lot of effort. And like, I have to do something while I'm sick. I'm not just gonna sit on the couch and watch Netflix, though that's tempting right now.